We don't get to see too much of the Rays around these parts. So how about a three-headed crossover monster? That's right. We're going to talk Twins, Rays, and whatever else tickles our fancy. This is Locked On Twins and Locked On Rays. We're doing a crossover.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can find me on Twitter, though I don't think that I would, at Brandon_WARNEN. Thanks for making Locked On Twins and Locked On Rays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little housekeeping here. If you could hang out with us in the comments, we'd love it on YouTube. Love to ask questions, answer questions, and just kind of get a general feel for the pulse of the fan. Also, too, if you have questions you'd like to ask on the show or have answered on the show, shoot them to me either at Locked On Twins or at Brandon_Warren. Hit the email. I actually had one texted to me earlier this season, so that was interesting. But also, too, don't forget to check out, we do a post-game minute after most games, and we wrap each of those with a stat you won't see anywhere else. Still trying to figure out mine for tonight, so we'll get to that in a little bit here. But this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Twins and the Rays will wrap up not only this series, but the season series at Target Field on Tuesday. It's a 12:10 first pitch. That is Central Time, so if you're a Rays fan listening on this crossover, it's a 1:10 first pitch, but it's going to be Dallas Keuchel and Taj Bradley. We'll have a lot of discussion about both of those guys and what has happened so far in this series. But you can catch every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Twins or search Rays if you're looking for the Rays guys. Speaking of the Rays guys, we've got our friends Ulysses Sembrano and Kevin Weiss. How are we doing, guys?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate the crossover here. As the headline, though, is probably easy to read from a Rays standpoint. Painful loss. Not just the way the game turned out, but what happened to Yandy Diaz as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What can you say? I mean,
we want to
read the injury report. There you go.
Woof. We want to be delicate. We don't want to get too testy, and we'll just leave it at that. One-run game. Twins have seen their share of those, but a 3-2 victory. So the Rays this year, one-run games, 18-24. Little surprising to me, Twins 18-22. So I want to get a vibe, though. Like, when the Rays are in these tight games, are you guys feeling good about their chances? Bad? Does it depend on who's pitching? Because Zach Littell going deep into a game, we just saw it recently against Seattle, but ordinarily you'd be like, whoa, I didn't think he'd go that far, and you'd go to the bullpen. But do you guys feel good when it's a tight game late and the Rays are trying to hold the lead?
I think in the beginning of the season, probably not, because the bullpen was kind of in shambles, especially during May. But it has gotten better lately, and you feel good about guys like Stevenson and Diekman and Fairbanks. And Poche has had a great season too. So you feel good about it. The problem is like you said, that 18-24 record does not breed a lot of confidence, but one-run games usually are kind of just heads or tails. So you think that ultimately you're going to end up being 50-50. Time is running out for the Rays to end up being 50-50, and they probably will be ending in a negative way. But I think, yeah, you do feel good because the offense can always pop off, but it's always a shame to lose these kind of games, especially when you're in the seventh inning and you feel good about it, and it was a tight ball game, and then, hey, 2 out, single, home run, and then you're given the loss. It definitely, like Kevin said, it was a painful one.
Do you guys want to hear something crazy?
Please.
Right now, there have been 1,200 on the nose one-run games this season. So I don't know, with Twins Rays ending just a little bit ago, I'm assuming that was the 1200th. So a statistical note for people to obviously file away and forget as soon as they shut this off. But
and I'd be really curious to see who has the best record in one.
It's the Marlins. So it's the Marlins. They're 30-12, which is astonishing.
Wow.
But then it's Orioles, Brewers, Braves, Pirates, Nationals. So those two are interesting. But again, you see a team go 30-12 like the Marlins, and it means one of a few things. Bullpen's good, pitching is good, or, just a good shake of the dice, as we kind of said. Padres, by comparison, have only played 28 one-run games, which is the fewest in MLB, but they're 6-22, which is probably a big reason why they're going to be home in October, and I don't mean playing ball games. But let's get back to this game. Rays deprived of win number 90, the horror. The Twins aren't even going to get there. And then the Rays came in winners of 4 straight and 6 of the last 7. Even though this one stings, I feel like you probably have to feel pretty good about how the Rays are playing lately, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to Ulysses' point on the tough loss that was for the Rays, it certainly does not lend itself confidence when you're within 1 run and you roll out Andrew Kittredge and Davinsky, and Yandy Diaz is nowhere to be found in the lineup because of the injury that he suffered, and some of the other guys that are absent from the lineup and from the team as well, where again, those are pretty devastating blows when you're trying to battle back from a 1-run deficit. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult on a night like tonight with Fairbanks coming off back-to-backs and 3 of the last 4. Stevenson worked 2 of the last 3. Pochelu's 2 of the last 3. Those are things that are difficult going into a game, kind of game planning for. And then you get that game flow, and suddenly it's a 1-run game, and you're leaning heavily on. And again, like I said, I'm a Zach Littell guy. I covered him here in Minnesota. He's a good dude. But it's still playing with fire to have a guy who's only been a starter in the big leagues for a very short period of time. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, to add to that, and Ulysses, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if Zach Littell yet has the swing and miss intimidation profile of going deep 3rd time in the order to really befuddle the opposition there.
Yeah, no, 100% you're right. And when they make contact, it can be loud contact. And so you do get worried. And I know he has been a revelation. Like, if you had to make not only a Rays revelation of 2023, but MLB revelations of what they've done with Littell this season is just unreal, because
kind of feels like Brandon Drury last year.
Yeah. And the Rays have been doing this in back-to-back seasons now. In 2021, they transformed Drew Rasmussen from the bullpen into a starter. Then the next year they did Jeffrey Springs, and now this year it's Littell. But even like Kevin said, with all the success he's had, you still think that he's going to get hit. There's not a lot of swing and miss stuff. So 7th inning comes around. It was odd not to just at least have somebody kind of doing at least some stretching or some kind of bullpenning work that they could, take him out after that single allowed.
It can be daunting to the psychology of seeing someone warming up. Starting pitchers talk about, does that mean that guy, they have 1 batter left? Does nobody warming up mean you're on your own? I mean, most of the time it has to by definition. But that's always an intriguing part of it too. And I mentioned off the air to Kevin and Ulysses, I'll mention this now too. Littell is one of my favorite guys to have covered with the Twins. Great dude. And my favorite little fact about him is that his middle name is Stuart. And so it's like Stuart Little, Stuart Littell. When you read his name, his mom thought that was funny when I brought that up. But yeah, so I think Littell is great. I think if he fits in someplace on a good team that has a healthy rotation, it's probably as a number 4, number 5 starter. But finding those guys off I hate to say scrap heap because that sounds kind of dismissive, and because I like Littell as a person, but to find those guys the way they did, I mean, Boston just cast him aside. Yeah. That's incredible player development.
No, it really is. It's just a testament to what the Rays do and how they've turned guys that have been discarded by other organizations, or other organizations didn't see the value in what a particular player or pitcher, I should say, brought to the table. And with Littell, I mean, he was, Scrap Heap's probably right. I mean, he was what the Rays, it's not like they were first on the waiver list. They were 28th. Right. So he got through a lot of teams to find his way onto the Rays, and credit to the Rays and him for quickly in season altering his repertoire and giving him, hey, add a sweeper, add a sinker, and just being able to deploy it within a very short amount of time. I feel like if you're going to add 1-2 pitches regularly, that's got to be an off-season move or multiple off-seasons move. Mm-hmm. So to be able to pick that up so quickly is really, really remarkable. And, you don't often see guys like that go, I mean, it's one thing for them to acquire a player and then that player to become a solid reliever for a couple months, but to actually, give you 6, 7, 8 innings not too long ago in a single start is really amazing. And, I don't know what the career arc or trajectory is for Zach Littell. Maybe the Rays are looking elsewhere after this season, but it's definitely a fun story. And you hope he gets a little taste of success in the postseason as well.
Yeah, and it takes a village, especially with a pitching staff, and that's before considering, guys getting hurt. You need bodies just to cover those innings, let alone cover injuries. Now, I want to get to more about this this game tonight, some injury updates and that sort of thing. But first, we got to talk about our friends over at Sleeper. MLB playoffs are coming up. They're right around the corner, and both of these teams are expected to be in that realm. But it means the clock is also ticking on your chance to make 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never, ever been more exciting than it is now. You got Ronald Acuna, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani. Julio Rodriguez is absolutely on fire right now. You pick more or less on different stats for those guys. So home runs, hits, strikeouts, you name it. And you can get up to 100-time payout on Sleeper. So if you get your picks right, you can win big. For me, it's fun. If your fantasy baseball team is cooked, and frankly, who isn't at this point, this is a good way to stay in the game. So again, use the promo code Locked on the Sleeper app, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so I wanted to bring up. I wince when I think about Yandy Diaz. Let's talk about Jose Siri first. That's a really unfortunate injury situation. Obviously, no intent by Dylan Floro, but his fastball runs a lot to right-handed hitters. And I mean, the fact that I think Siri started a swing against it speaks to the amount the pitch moved. But I hate to say it, just tough break at this time of year.
Yeah, literally a break. So he's got a fracture, right? So he's going to be missing, he says 2 weeks, because Siri's that kind of guy who is very optimistic. The team said 3 weeks. So he could be available for the playoffs. But like Kevin and I were talking about on Tuesday's episode, this is a guy who has a lot of swing and miss, and he's very wild at the plate. So you're telling us that a guy that's going to be missing, let's say, an average of 2.5 weeks of baseball, that's timing loss. So if he's already wild at the plate with 2.5 weeks lost from baseball activity, what can you expect from him at the plate? The defense is always going to be playing with him, and that's going to be great for whoever's on the mound, probably Littell when he comes back, right? So that's going to be great. But at the plate, what can you really expect from him in the playoffs? And he was a guy that you could make look foolish for 3 out of 4 at bats. And Pitching Ninja would have just a great time doing videos with him. But that 4th at bat, he could go deep on you, and there could be 2 people on base, and that's why he has 25 bombs. Right, Kevin? He's in the quarter century mark. So
which is a rarity for center fielders. I mean, that does not come around very often, especially for Rays center fielders. And we mentioned on our recent episode, there's a domino effect, because not only are you without Siri and the spark he provides with his legs, with his arm, with his glove, and with his power. But also who is having to take those reps at center field? Josh Lowe, Luke Raley, guys who aren't, comfortable or accustomed to being center field first guys, which impacts them in some shape or form, and the pitching staff as well. It's one thing to have Jose Siri behind you. There's a lot of confidence there. If there's somebody not named Jose Siri behind you, it can cause some issues and maybe you pitch differently or think differently. So it definitely does have an impact in that respect. I'm not sure the progress of Manny Margot now. If Manny Margot was healthy, then that would alleviate some matters.
Yep.
Yeah, Margot has just started his rehab assignment, so he could possibly be back sooner than later, which would be great. Like hey, you go out and Margot enters, but still, you're still, it's not like he's in the swing of things. I mean, AAA rehabs can only go so far.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
So long.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with Jose Siri, like Ulysses mentioned, you're coming back right in the jump of the playoffs, and you've had limited reps, and you're just not ready for the intense action that is. So I'd expect a lot of swing and miss and a lot of silly swings. So that is something that you have to have a little bit of worry about as well, and who you're having to call up and give reps to in place of that. More rookies, more young players. Vidal Brujan probably going to get more action. Curtis Mead, as much as we love him, how confident are we that he can perform in September baseball, October baseball, whatever it may be? So it's a really, really huge loss in multiple ways for sure.
Yeah, and Luke Raley filling in center field, if that name is familiar to Twins fans, is because he was a Twins prospect for a while, part of the Kenta Maeda trade, has bounced around, but seems to have found a home in Tampa, but certainly not going to bring the defensive value that Siri's going to bring. When we talk about, though, a former Twin, we also have to talk about a former Rays prospect. So Zach Littell starting for the Rays, Joe Ryan starting for the Twins, and it was kind of a flip-flop, bizarro world there where 4 or 5 years ago, Zach Littell was pitching in relief for the Twins and doing a nice job. And just a couple years ago, Joe Ryan was a pitching prospect for the Rays. Do you guys, how is that trade viewed? Because Twins fans have this tendency to lament everything. So literally, like if a pitcher who was here 5 years ago has a decent season as a reliever, people just melt down sometimes. Are fans like, it happened. We wanted Nelson Cruz at the time. It's no big deal. Or, how do Rays fans process that?
People have started to rewrite history because of how good Joe Ryan has been and the trajectory of Nelson Cruz's career has been after that. Yep. Now instead of everybody recognizing that most of the fan base was like, wow, the Rays are actually going for it. They're going for Nelson Cruz. They're actually giving up Joe Ryan and Drew Strotman. Like, this is unbelievable that they're going for it. People are forgetting that. And now the narrative has changed into, wow, we gave up Joe Ryan for Nelson Cruz, who was washed. And it's like, no, Nelson Cruz was an all-star in 2021. And the Rays offense was the best it had ever been in franchise history once they made that trade. They were scoring more than 5 runs a game. So people have started to shift on the narrative just because of how good Joe Ryan has been for the Twins and how badly Nelson Cruz's career has gone after being with the Rays. But like Kevin pointed out, it's not like Nelson Cruz was just dead with the Rays. He was actually pretty productive on the power side.
Well, and that's the risk. Well, that's the risk inherent with a trade deadline acquisition is you have a narrow window. So if they stink or just have a tough stretch, that's just baseball. It's the same with a reliever. It's the same with a starting pitcher.
Yeah. Yeah. And you should feel more confident in getting a guy like Nelson Cruz, who's a been there, done that guy and made so many all-star appearances and had the postseason experience as well, that he would at least maybe pick it up in the right moments, which he showed during the course in that stretch there that he was able to. I feel like maybe, and Joe Ryan's been a godsend for sure, but maybe we wouldn't be shedding as much light on the Joe Ryan former Rays farmhand situation if Shane McClanahan was healthy, if Shane Baz was healthy, if Jeffrey Springs was healthy, if Drew Rasmussen was healthy. I mean, it's
an
been
entire rotation.
a gut punch of guys that have gone down and out for one reason or another.
Yeah, and you said Margot starting a rehab. I think in a similar vein, Nick Gordon is doing the same for the Twins, and somebody did the math, and it sounds like the maximum stay on a rehab would put them right around October 4th. So right around the time the playoffs are starting. Now, do you want a guy to go straight from, let's say, AAA to a playoff game? No. The Twins did it with Alex Kirilloff. Actually, that was straight from summer camp to a playoff game. Not great, but 2020 was a wild time. But yeah, so we'll see. Maybe Margot makes his way back. Probably won't be a Twins issue because I think, as near as I can tell, they're most certainly going to have to meet in the ALCS if they do in the postseason. Curtis Mead, though, gets the call, certainly under not ideal circumstances. But what's your level of excitement for a guy like that? I mean, again, you want to see these youngsters. I'm just as prospect crazy as most, but it comes with a price.
Yeah, it's definitely. And your prospect crazy, then Rays fandom really likes you, because as Rays fans, we are just really prospect gung ho. And we try to say, let's not do prospect hugging here. Let's just recognize that it's going to be very difficult to make it to the majors. But Curtis Mead, a friend of the program for Locked On Rays, we're really excited about what he can do with the bat. The fact is, though, he's been mashing in the minors, has had some limited success before he got sent down to AAA, and now he just gets this call up. So you don't really know what to expect, if he's going to just be on fire like he was in AAA after the send down, but you hope so. But how many at-bats is he going to get? How many, what does normalcy at-bats look for a guy that just got called up? And you have an infield that's pretty thick now. With Yandy Diaz, is he going to be missing some time because he needs to take care of that situation? I would take a day off after that. I think you both will too. And so maybe we do see Curtis Mead in the lineup a little bit more this week.
Yeah, and that's the challenge too, is you wonder, and maybe he thinks about it, maybe he doesn't, just you're replacing Yandy Diaz. I don't know for how long, hopefully not too long, because Yandy Diaz is performing like an MVP candidate, but the pressure of you're filling the void, you're replacing Yandy Diaz, an all-star, an MVP candidate, all these accolades. Similar for Basabe, who has been replacing Wander Franco for the last several weeks, month plus, whatever it is. But I will say this about Curtis Mead, and I think eventually he'll find his spot and he'll be an everyday player. I don't know if it's going to be early next year, late next year, 2025, whatever it may be. But just based in what I saw from last night's game or this past evening's game, man, he's got some quick hands, really quick hands with the bat, which is something that can't be taught. So I don't know how much it's going to translate into hits, extra base hits, home runs at this juncture, but he's got the makings of becoming a really good player. And when we've had him on the program multiple times, you can just hear the passion he has for the sport and wanting to represent his country in a positive way, in the diligence and attention to detail on wanting to be the absolute best that he can, be it taking coaching, taking notes on every at bat, gets into the weeds on what he's doing well and what he can improve upon. Like, I think he's sort of that modern analytics player of, I want more information, I want better information, I want it all to determine how I can to be at my best potential, basically.
Yeah, and every player is going to process that information differently. You can have overload, and some guys just want all of it but can shut that off at the plate. I kind of feel like Joey Votto might be that kind of guy, but I digress. We do have to talk about our friends over at Gametime. If you've been stressed looking for tickets, if that Rays game is sold out, and I'm not kidding, maybe a playoff game, maybe late in the season, or a Twins game, if you're stressed out, Gametime is the way to go. Download the Gametime app, or you can go to gametime.co, not .com, .co. But again, you shouldn't be stressed out buying tickets to a game. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be enjoying yourself, whether it's spring, summer, early fall, all that fun stuff. So if you're in Minneapolis and you want to go to a concert, a show, or if you're in Tampa, St. Pete area and you want to go to something like that, this is the app for you. It's the place for last-minute ticket deals, and the game time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. So if you find tickets in the same area, the section and row, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's just 2 taps and you're set. Quick situation here. Tickets sent directly to your phone, so you don't have to dig through your email. You can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That's all caps, one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So we talked off the air about the Rays without Wander Franco, and they're 18-9, third best record in that stretch. I think the Braves were one of the teams ahead of them because the Braves are nasty and you can't, whatever. They're going to be a formidable foe in October on the NL side. But the Rays have stemmed the tide pretty well. And I just wanted to float that out there in case there were Twins fans wondering if they can hang as we get towards October. Now, I do want to turn this on its head, though, because as a crossover, there are going to be some Twins fans being like, well, what the heck? Why don't we talk about the Twins? When you look from a Rays standpoint, what do you see when you see the Twins, the 2023 Twins, the Twins who have scored 9 of their 10 runs against the Rays this year via home run, assuming the broadcast was correct. I didn't fact check it, so I'm hoping it's true. What do you guys see when you see the Twins?
That's a good question. I feel like, and I've said this before, so I can't just go back on my word. I feel like the Central divisions are the weakest in MLB, AL Central and NL Central. And now the Twins are doing what you're supposed to do. Is just choke everybody out.
Finally.
Right? And so they're taking advantage of that, and maybe less so this year because of the scheduling being a little bit more balanced, and you don't have as many games against the Royals and the Chicago White Sox, who, by the way, I mean, you might feel a little bit more harsher on this subject because they're your interdivisional rivals, but I just do not understand how the national media has just fallen in love with the Chicago White Sox for the last 3 years, and now they're like, oh yeah, maybe they do. They're not that great. It's like, yeah, they haven't ever been. Yep. They haven't ever been.
Not since like 2005 when they won the World Series. Then it's been a death march.
Yeah. Okay, I digress on my Chicago White Sox fans.
No, but still, they're bad. They're hashtag bad.
Yeah, they really are. But no, I feel like the Twins are just a sensible team. I would expect more from Carlos Correa, maybe from the outside looking in. I feel like that has been an underwhelming performance for him this year. But again, like, you don't know what's going on in a guy's head and his surroundings. So that they're a solid ball club. I feel like in a playoff round, they can do some damage, but in the long run, they're not a powerhouse, I feel like, in the American League.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. Again, not to crap on the Twins or anything like that, but I'd be curious to see what their record would be if you uplifted them, stick them in the AL East. What would their record be from that point of view? I mean, the AL Central...
They've played up to the level of teams. Okay. The problem is they lost the season series to Detroit. They've just had some spots where you're like, what is this team doing? And then they win the season series against the Yankees, who, again, I know the Yankees have been not the all caps Yankees this year, but they've been such a thorn in the Twins' side that it's like, whatever. Maybe if you can carry this into October, you can play to the level of Seattle, Toronto, whoever you end up facing, and then hopefully moving on. But as we're all well aware, Twins haven't won a playoff game since I was in my first year of college. Now, we're coming up on the season series and series finale. It's going to be Dallas Keuchel and Taj Bradley on Wednesday. It's a 12:10 p.m. first pitch. What are you guys looking for as the Rays prepare to shut down the regular season? Because in the most recent episode of Locked On Twins, nice little plug for us here, I hashed out 6 different things the Twins need to figure out. They need to get their bullpen lined up, get everybody healthy. The rotation getting healthy or lined up shouldn't be hard with the lead they have. You just kind of whatever. But It's figure out if Byron Buxton's going to help you. Can you get Carlos Correa off his feet enough to, get him where he needs to be in October? They need a couple youngsters to get out of their funks. Those were Eddie Julian, who homered tonight, Matt Wallner, who had a hustle double tonight. So maybe a little bit of power suggestion there. But the moves the Twins need to make, I covered those. I want to know, what are you guys looking for the Rays, who are 22.0% chance to win the division before tonight? They're hanging around, but they're not in the catbird seat.
Well, one thing that I'll just throw out there, and Ulysses, you can elaborate on this if you want. I want to see more Rene Pinto hitting. Like, this is what we should be. Hey, you talk about calling up and not prospect hugging and seeing, can Curtis Mead make an impact right away? Can another player make an impact right away? We're seeing that from Rene Pinto. So can he hold it up? Can he sustain it for the long term? I don't know. But what we're seeing right now with the power and the up the middle, a little bit the other way approach, I'm loving it right now. And I know that his career numbers in the minors are solid, not as good as what he's showcasing here, but maybe this lends a little bit more insight into the move that the Rays were willing to make with Francisco Mejia.
Yep. Yeah, certainly. And, Kevin and I have this thing that I give my Venezuelan players the Venezuelan bump. So Rene Pinto being Venezuelan, I will give him the Venezuelan bump. Yeah, exactly. I enjoy what he's doing. And it was a head scratcher when Francisco Mejia was let go. And obviously he's still now with their organization. But if this is what Rene Pinto, if this is what they saw in Rene, well, then it makes sense. He's been doing great. But I kind of want to turn it around and ask you about Dallas Keuchel. Did you ever see this happen? Was it something that people were asking for? I doubt. And how are you handling his performance as a Twin?
People were ticked when the Twins didn't sign him back when the White Sox did before 2020. And it was kind of like the writing was on the wall. He wasn't that good with Atlanta the year before. Again, not going to strike anybody out, tons of grounders, but he just was nowhere near what he had been at his peak in Houston. And again, Cy Young winner, of course, you're not going to be at your peak the whole time. But just the way the bottom fell out last year, it felt a little bit Madison Bumgarner-esque to me. Not from an attitude standpoint necessarily, because I don't know where Keuchel stands there, but just kind of all right, this has run its course. It's a lefty who can't get the velocity up there anymore, et cetera, et cetera. When they signed him, it was just kind of like, meh, see what happens. The rotation was healthy, notwithstanding Tyler Mahle, who's missed most of the season. Kento was out for a little bit, but has come back and been a little better. He struggled of late. But it wasn't like a need. It wasn't an obvious need. Then Bailey Ober hit his innings from previous years, so they've kind of shuffled him around to keep those innings down. And it's opened up a spot for Keuchel. The numbers aren't pretty in the sense that, the ERA is almost 5. He's still getting his grounders, but he's not striking anybody out. You kind of feel like the other shoe could drop any time now. But the Twins had Bartolo Colon on kind of a little run like this a few years ago. And the fever for Keuchel isn't as much as it was for Colon, believe it or not. But there's a very similar vibe. He's the kind of guy that ticks you off because it's like every fan base hates their third base coach and are convinced they could do a better job. This guy's throwing 87 and just kind of cutters and sliders and whatnot, sinkers. He looks like you could hit him. And so it drives fans crazy. Every fan is convinced a lefty who throws 88 just crushes their team. So I'm kind of hoping that's what's the case tomorrow. You guys already got your 4 wins. You got your season series. Maybe Keuchel can stymie the Rays offense for a little bit. And who knows? I don't wish this, but a guy like that can mess with your timing when you're coming up on a big series against the Orioles. So it's all going to be part of the equation. I'm curious to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's funny. On Dallas Keuchel, the repertoire is spot on. But if you were to look at Dallas Keuchel, just me anyway, I would say this guy's throwing 97, 98. The way he looks with the beard and the muscular builds, like this guy must be just an unstoppable force, unhittable in that respect. And really his counterpart in this in this wrap-up game, Taj Bradley, I'm just hoping he doesn't give up 3-4 home runs like we've seen time and again, or multiple times this season.
Mm-hmm.
You want Taj to just kind of have a good, solid start. He's a young guy. If he's taking his licks, like, let it be, in the past. You want him to just start getting some good outings in the future and present. So hopefully that's what happens with Taj. But I would be on the lookout for Royce Lewis from the outside looking in. Like, that guy is just
so good.
He's a talent, man, and he might be the next superstar wearing a Twins uniform.
He's so good. Well, if you want some encouragement, very similar game in the end of the Mets series. So Twins took 2 of 3, but were shut out 2-0 in the final game of the Mets series before the Rays came to town. And Tyler McGill came in with an ERA over 5. The numbers were not great recently, and he shut the Twins down for 5 innings, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. So not like he had them eating out of the palm of his hand, but they were 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and they gave up, I think, a 2-run double to DJ Stewart late. That was the difference. So it's not all for naught. May not seem like the best pitching matchup, but it doesn't always have to pan out that way either. I mean, the Twins, they won a game started by Kodai Senga where it was Keuchel on the other side. You never see these things coming. It's absolutely incredible. I'm trying to think of what else I had for you guys. Oh, if we'll close with this, unless you guys have anything for me, but if there was a Rays hitter who was going to go on and a Rosarena postseason type heater that we saw 3-4 years ago, whatever it was, initially I was thinking maybe it'd be Curtis Mead, but you guys have kind of sold me on Pinto. And I mean, I saw him hit a homer, obviously, on Tuesday night. Who is that guy, though? If the Rays are going to have someone go off on a heater, and there's a lot of candidates. Luke Raley, I mean, good player, but if he just blows up and has a couple good series, we saw what it did for Rosarena. Who do you think could be that guy for the Rays this year?
I think maybe I'm taking Kevin's pick, or maybe he's just going to agree with me. It's this guy. Can't see me. Isaac Paredes.
Nice.
I mean, he is just unbelievable. He might be top 5, top 3 third baseman in all of Major League Baseball in 2023, and nobody is talking about him except for us and Locked On Rays. He has just been fantastic. He's going to be a 30 homer, 100 RBI guy. He's barely 24. This is just a great talent, and he has gone on runs for like 2.5 weeks, where he will just tear the cover off the ball. So if you're looking for that candidate for October baseball, Isaac Paredes could definitely be that guy.
Yeah, I'll give a 1A, 1B, 1A or 1B could be Isaac Paredes, the way he crowds the plate and pitchers still throw him in and he turns and burns on it. And yeah, not only one of the most productive third basemen, but one of the most underrated players in all of baseball, I would say, at this time and juncture. Another guy I'd throw out there, if we can't pick Randy Rosarena, that'd be maybe my obvious choice, but Josh Lowe, I think maybe deserves some love. I feel like maybe we haven't, or just the fan base haven't given him as much kudos for what he's done this season, just in what he can do in all aspects of the game. But what we've seen from him is his approach at the plate. He can handle anything, fastball, off speed, breaking ball. He can adjust his swing. He can adjust to different pitch types and pitch shapes, and he can change the game. He doesn't seem like a guy that shies away from the spotlight either. So that'd be another one I'd throw out there too.
And Brandon, let's turn it around on you. Who would be that guy for the Twins?
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I mean, bringing up Royce Lewis is a good one. It's hard to justify him though. He's a former number 1 pick, and he's been a top prospect. So I think he'd be the guy just because he's like the pulse. He's like the backbone on this team right now, which is hard to believe on a Carlos Correa team and a Byron Buxton team. But it's just like he gives them a whole nother element. He's like what a healthy Byron Buxton can do. But if they were going to have someone maybe that people aren't thinking about, it would either be Edouard Julien, who homered in the Tuesday game. Great plate discipline, just a real pest atop the order. He's been taking too many called third strikes. That's really been driving people crazy. But the discipline numbers have been incredible in the minors. And if you want to do anything in October, it's pollute the bases. So either him or I'm going to say Alex Kirilloff, good hitting prospect who's going to get probably plenty of time at first base in October. Hopefully they'll face a bunch of righties so they don't have to shield him. But for me, it kind of comes down to that. Now, I did want to ask, too, do you think Willie Castro and Isaac Paredes ever get together and laugh about the Detroit days and just how what might have been if Detroit had realized what they had in those guys? Granted, I know Willie's not a stud, but he's a really nice role player for a team that's going to the playoffs. That's not nothing.
Organizational, corporate culture matters, man. Yep. And the environment matters. And that's why you see a lot of that happening. If a new scenery for a guy can do wonders. And some people we're in this age of analytics, which again, awesome. You get more information. That is great. You can't only look at one side of the puzzle. But it seems to me that now with all of these new stats that people are looking at and putting a name to, they are forgetting that these aren't just like computer chips. They're just or a numbers on a spreadsheet. They're just human beings, and sometimes who you're in contact with in a workspace, because that is their workspace, that matters to them and how they're going to perform.
And I'll also say on the flip side of that, or along with that, it's not like the Tigers just gave Isaac Paredes away. I mean, they got Austin Meadows, a 30 homer, 100 RBI guy in return with expectation that he could continue to provide that level of production. Alas, that has not been the case. But also, maybe it was just, maybe giving up on him a little bit too soon. But when he made his major league debut and got his first taste of action, he was 21, 22 years old. Maybe you just need a couple more seasons under your belt to really find your footing and find yourself. So it also could have been a case of that as well.
That's the beauty of the game, but it's also the pure frustrating factor. The game is predicated on failure. And so how you manage that failure, how you learn from that failure and all that. And I think that's lost on a lot of fans, that successes should be celebrated, but failure happens. So that's my philosophicalness to end the show.
Yeah. And guys like that, when you never experienced failure when you were playing high school ball, when you're playing travel ball growing up, you turn 20, 21 for the first time. And it's like, wow, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was at this. And I need to learn how to deal with those trials and tribulations. And not everybody deals with it the same way. Not everybody can be a guy that just, wipes the strikeout, wipes it away and says, I don't care. I'll get him next time. I'll get him next at bat.
Well, every play has a winner and a loser, and sometimes your best doesn't beat their best. So we just have to keep that in mind. But guys, thank you so much for Ulysses and Kevin. You can see on the screen their Twitter handles, but Kevin Weiss _ and then Zambrano Ulysses. I'll let you spell that for the listeners just so I don't mix it up.
Zambrano with an S, not like Carlos Zambrano. So Zambrano with an S and then Ulises.
So I did spell it right on the graphics. I'm pretty proud of that. So with that, it's been great chatting with you guys. I wish they played more often so we could do this more often. But again, thank you so much for your time. Follow those guys. What's the Locked On Rays tag on Twitter? Is it at Locked On Rays?
Correct.
Okay, Twins are at Locked On Twins. I'm at Brennan _Warren. Thanks for making us your first listen every day, whether it's Locked On Rays, Locked On Twins, Locked On MLB. We love having you here. Make sure to check us out. I'm going to be doing a crossover with Sully on Wednesday after the Twins-Rays series wraps. Always a fun time talking to Sully, so check that out. But with that said, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you are listening on or watching. Give us a thumbs up or a subscribe or both on YouTube. With that said, this is Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much, and don't forget to stop by tomorrow.